Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind top or Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamante again! Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick from Maria.
Well, the sport of football does not care much for storylines, that's for sure. Wellington Phoenix, having not played a home game in so long, returned to Wellington in front of 18,000 fans and promptly lost 4-0 to the Central Coast Mariners. Not exactly the fairy tale finish to their season that they were looking for, but certainly the Central Coast Mariners showing that they are a force to be reckoned with on their day. And we had plenty of interesting storylines and surprises. We've had so many weird scorelines in the A-League of late. So hard to get a read on this competition, even as it enters the pointy end of the season. But a spanner thrown in the works by the Asian Champions League as well. We're going to be catching up with Ryan Walters of K-League United, Editor-in-Chief and host of the K-League United podcast, in a few minutes to chat about the Asian Champions League. He's going to join us live from Bangkok. I'm Josh Parrish. I've got Jason Goldsmith here with me. And Jason, what did you make of the events over in New Zealand?
Hello, Josh. It was kind of disappointing. I think I heard the commentary say they were party poopers, the Mariners, and they were a little bit, because if you think about it, the Phoenix played during the week in Sydney against Perth Glory and had a 1-0 win, so their form line was looking good coming into going home. But they played that game in front of 89 people. So 89 fans came out in the rain. It was pretty bad conditions, and the two teams aren't from Sydney, so they were playing against the Glory, who we know are quite terrible. But then they went home, and there's the third largest A-League crowd for the season, 18,000 people. And it was just it looked like a really, really great event for the people of Wellington, the people of New Zealand, to get back behind the Phoenix. And then it was over pretty good. And Kalolo's initial celebrations where he plugged his ears in, sort of, it summed it up for the Phoenix. And they were called the party poopers after that,
Well, I think the Mariners are the party. I don't think they're the party poopers. They're good fun to watch this season.
They've been great fun to watch this season. 4-0 is a great result for them, and it puts them in pretty good standing. And they come into, where are they now? They're 8th on the ladder. A couple of games in hand above teams above them as well. So we want them to storm into the final 6 calculations, and they're going quite well.
The finals team, I know they're 5th. Or 6th now, as the live ladder stands, with the game in progress in Tasmania, of course. But they've got a negative 14 goal difference. It just doesn't seem right to me that they're in the finals mix.
Look, there's that much inconsistency. That's what we do know. I mean, at the moment, I think I read one of Joey Lynch's articles. They said there's basically 3 teams out of the running at the moment, and they're sort of plodding around. And that soon might be another one, might be 4. So the inconsistencies there. You got those middle-tiered sides that can still, final 6 out of 12 teams, you're going to reward mediocrity at some stage. So, yeah, I don't think Wellington will make a bit of a dent in it, but it's fantastic that they're home, and they're back in New Zealand again this week. this weekend coming. They're playing in Auckland at Eden Park. So against the Wanderers. So
Against Mark Redan. It could be a really, really bad homecoming if they cop a
maybe that's why
loss to
they
Redan.
moved it away from Wellington for that very reason, that very famous picture that they've got of him. Hopefully that goes well for them. And the other thing too, I guess our man Jason scored and looked quite well in Perth. Did quite well during the week as well for the Mariners. And Arnie's talking about him.
He's on the radar, is he? What has Arnie said?
Arnie came out and said, yes, we're watching him closely. He's in calculations. But, I mean, you probably say that about anyone that you throw up for him. But, he's in the mix.
You'd be worried if Arnie wasn't watching a striker eligible for the Socceroos closely who's actually scoring goals and playing regularly.
And he's fit. Yeah, exactly. So, you know what I mean?
Well, he's fit now. He wasn't when he got here, let's be honest. But he got fit pretty quick.
He did. But the thing is, he's going to work well. I mean, this depends. He'll work well with in a pairing. What he's doing at the moment, because I think he's assisting as much as he's scoring at the moment, and he's missing shots as well. So like he's getting the ball in the right positions at the right time and having a good crack. So, he's being watched closely. Whether or not that results in him making the squad, it's the feel-good story that we want and we need. That's a story that we need this year, I think.
Is this Mariners team better than the Stadge team? Do you think? Because I think they've got a little bit more to them. I think they've got more strings to their bow.
I think the foreign players, the foreign signings have made the difference because they're still playing the kids, right? So you still look at Kai Rolls, you look at Daniel Hall. They're still playing those younger players that are coming through, which is what the Mariners were initially known for, and what we want them to keep doing is producing those players that go on to have, national team selection. But the foreigners have made the difference.
That's true. The likes of, Maresh has been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Urenya and the cum dog.
He's not foreigner. Unfortunately, we got to class him as a Australian
I guess
passport.
so. Yeah, true.
But Urenya and working with Cummings has been great. So, and during the week, so prior to their 4-0 smashing of the Phoenix, they came from 2-0 down with 10 men to knock off the Wanderers during the week. So. That was a pretty good result. Hall scoring in the 95th minute for them to earn a point. So the Mariners still sort of in calculations there. That's a good sort of comeback story for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Wellington, obviously a tough way to announce yourself back to the New Zealand public and try and keep those crowds and that interest up. Obviously, there's this kind of artificial interest in Phoenix at the moment because it's the novelty of actually seeing your team play in person when you've been denied that. And it's not a good way to reinforce that, obviously, coming out and losing 4-0. But I do think this team without Clayton Lewis and Alex Rufer in the middle of the park is a little bit rudderless. And the volatility that we're seeing in their results is perhaps a upshot of not having a proper midfield to be able to absorb pressure, to be able to control games and see out games and actually maintain possession. Their games tend to be quite chaotic and up and down. And you look at the XG for this match, which I think it was 1.4 to 1.7. The Mariners just were much more clinical in front of goal. So it's not like they're totally being outplayed in games, but for me, the lack of midfield quality and leadership just leaves them a bit vulnerable to scorelines like this, where goals get piled on really quick and they don't have that structure.
Yeah, and you look at their goalkeeper's been outstanding. So Ollie Sale's had one of the better years going around. So he had. He's actually kept them in.
Probably been the second best keeper in the league behind Beerers.
Yeah, behind Birighitti. That's when they're both on display. But yeah, he's probably kept them in the game. For a lot of games, a lot of times this season, and again we talk about, I guess, the inconsistency there, but we want to work out the Phoenix and also the Glory have had to spend so much time on the east coast of Australia rather than at home to do this, and there's two different ways to have to come out of it. And we look at how the Phoenix have travelled. They've now got some glorious homecoming games with big crowds, a party atmosphere. I've never been to a game at the Cake Tin, but I have been to Wellington. I would love to go to a game there. And when they win, would be an amazing atmosphere to go. And you contrast that with the Glory, who also had pretty much the similar terms of season in terms of being displaced. And they've been woeful. I mean, the 6-0 loss on the weekend to Western United.
Let's talk about the Glory. I mean, Ruben Zadkiewicz came out and pretty much savaged his senior players. He did.
I didn't think they had any senior players. As Tony Sage told us last week, they're all kids.
Well, but the players who I don't know quite who he was referring to.
Probably Liam Reddy's the only one that's not.
Yeah,
considered,
he's the
not
most senior player in the league. He's been around forever
in the country. Yeah,
I think he's the only ex NSL player in the.
I think there's three.
League.
I think Alex Wilkinson.
Okay, all right.
And there's one more, which Andrew Howe would be able to tell us. But
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll get corrected. But he's one of a few remaining anyway. But going down 6-1 to Newcastle, obviously, and then 6-0 against
6-0, and they missed the penalty too. Western United actually missed the pen and to start off before the rot set in. So it could have been even worse. How can you even say that? It could have been worse.
Yeah, he was, I guess, talking about players who weren't in the squad for this match earlier in the season. They've just checked out. But there's a degree of self-preservation with Ruben Zadkovic saying this, because if this was genuinely a side that he'd assembled, he'd never get an A-League coaching job again.
Does he have the job? Yeah, but does he have the job for next year, or is he just a stopgap at the moment?
I'm not sure. I mean, he doesn't seem to be endearing himself to the club hierarchy with the way he's acting in these presses. I like that he came out and showed a bit of passion and a bit of intensity, and not just giving stock standard answers and trying to gaslight the media asking the questions. We see that a lot in the A-League, that they're looking to give as bland a possible answer or pretend like everything's fine, which it's clearly not. Tony Sage, we talked about him last week, coming out and calling the rusted on fans who still care, who still give a crap, keyboard warriors, which, is less than ideal. This side was assembled with a bunch of 30-somethings as the key points in the team.
Yeah.
And now they're turning around surprised that they're all injured. It just makes no sense to me. Like, it's a harsh season in Australia. The pitches are hard. It's a summer campaign. There's a lot of travel involved. I mean, nobody told Daniel Sturridge apparently, but there's a lot of flying around.
4 hours.
It's a long away trip, and especially when COVID hits, you're away from home a lot. So, like, if you're going to sign a whole bunch of 30-somethings, don't be surprised when they spend a lot of time in the treatment room. And it seems as if the changes are already happening. We've seen the coach go without any fanfare whatsoever. Terry McFlynn already has a new job, so he's gone. He left in April.
Yeah.
They just didn't tell anybody. So I guess there will be a change over there, but I'm not sure what this club really wants to be, what their aim is for next season. Are they kind of trying to develop youth, or are they now throwing them in and expecting the world of them when they haven't been given opportunities earlier and the squad hasn't been built with them in mind?
So 3 games to go, it looks like. So they've got Adelaide away and 2 games at home, and it's just they couldn't end quick enough for them, really, because this just hasn't been the ideal run for them. But interesting, if Ruben Zadkovic gets the job next year, what does he do? They've thrown all the kids in there now. Do we have to get rid of all of the old players that they thought would be the answer for them?
Yeah, I guess there has to be a big clean out there.
And I think then Glory fans are like saying, well, Castro was the old guy that they just didn't give a contract to. Like, he would be holding it together for them right now, wouldn't he?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't know where his head's at and whether he had the motivation to come back. But, he showed during the campaign last season that he was a little worried about the pandemic, and he didn't feel that he wanted to put himself through, I guess, the trials and tribulations that players have to. And why would you when Diego Castro's age and you've earned everything that you need to earn and achieved everything that you wanted to achieve in football? Like, it's hard to say, come back again. But the fact that he was so unceremoniously replaced by Daniel Sturridge without much fanfare whatsoever, it's,
Or even asking the fans, I guess. Brandon O'Neill was probably going to be their feel-good story, which hasn't happened either for various reasons. So, yeah, it's they're coming the worst season. They're going to end up with a wooden spoon.
Never been wooden spooners before in their entire history.
Yeah,
even in the NSL. So
that's it. Can't get relegated, so play the kids, and you can't complain when you get flogged 6-0.
Yeah, this is hard times for Perth Glory. I wonder whether a change in ownership is coming. I mean, Tony Sage keeps talking about it. Maybe this is the last straw.
Yeah, it might be overdue for them to get a bit of a shake-up.
Yeah, potentially. And, I struggle to feel sorry for Tony Sage. Like, he goes on and on about all the money he's lost. Well, I mean, he's also earned a lot more money than any of us could ever dream of. So I struggle to feel a lot of sympathy for him in this situation. But let's talk about Sydney FC, who got a rap on the knuckles from the governing body, coincidentally managed by their own current CEO, for filling an extended bench with too few under 23 Australian players on it.
And this retrospectively was found out by
Other clubs.
Other clubs dobbed them in because they were doing their own research.
And we would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the meddling kids that we didn't play.
Yeah,
Yep.
so some I don't know who the club was. You might know who the club was. No. So someone's doing their research on Sydney FC, obviously playing them in the coming weeks, and has looked through their lineups and their benches and the rest of it, and they haven't. So who's not checking it? Who from the APL is actually not checking it to start off with? Isn't that like a box ticking exercise when they submit the team sheets in every week?
Apparently not.
So these games, how long ago were the games?
They were a couple of months ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like how could this slip through? This is like basic administration.
It really is.
It's just
shambolic.
This is the team sheet. This Sydney FC have finished. All right, bang, bang, bang. Oh, there's no under 23s.
The thing is, they happen to lose these games. So the fact that they're going down as a 3-0 loss is almost of no consequence. It's just goal difference. That's all that matters.
That's it. So the goal difference is now in the negatives because of that. But they're not going to make the finals the way things are tracking for Sydney FC anyway. So I don't think it's Sydney's fault. They didn't get if they did it twice, right? They've got away with it and they do it again. And who's not checking it? It's just astounding.
It also points out the absurdity of Danny Townsend being in charge of the APL whilst he's still the Sydney FC CEO. Yeah. Yes, that changeover is going to happen in the off season, but that never should have been. Like, it's such a massive conflict of interest.
It is, but
it should never have been allowed to happen. Sydney FC should have had a new CEO in charge. They shouldn't have been given this grace period. He never should have been able to do both jobs, just as Graham Arnold should never have been Ollie Roos and Socceroos coach at the same time. Like
that might come down. All of that comes down to money and the most appropriate person to run the thing. Whilst we're kicking the administration, let's talk about the fixturing. So there's a game on right now in Tasmania, a 5 p.m. kickoff of the two latest expansion teams. So Western United playing home games there, as we know. 5 o'clock. Now, I understand Tuesday is a public holiday, or the Easter Tuesday is a public holiday in Tasmania. But who's taking their kids to see a game at 5 o'clock on the last day of a public holiday? So it just confuses me that there was no games on Easter Monday. There was one game on Easter Sunday. And they're chucking this game on now. And wouldn't you have it leading into the Asian Champions League tonight? Because Sydney FC playing at 9 o'clock. So if you want people to be a bit of a lead up, you got 2 hours off. They might forget the ACL's on. Yeah,
it's silly, isn't it? Like, and also the fact that Asian Champions League, is on 10 play instead of Paramount. It's a bit less than ideal. We have been impressed with the production values.
Let's just say we have we've been a little critical this season about Paramount Plus's highlights package, but I can tell you they've got the highlights for the ACL, and I went through a lot of it today, and they're doing a very good job there. And we think it's from the AFC themselves, but
I would guess that this is the AFC providing it to all of the broadcasters, which is good from the AFC to actually have a bit more centralised media, and basically just if you want it done well, do it yourself. Have a standardised package with really fancy graphics and everything, and make it easy. Make it easy for the host broadcasters that pick up the rights. That's what you want to do, and I think that's the process of learning that's going on at AFC. They're presenting themselves better internationally now. The competition feels like less of an afterthought and less of an exercise in covering up all the sponsorship hoardings,
that's right,
or whatever, and all the brand names on the fire extinguishers, and more like a serious football competition.
And the way they're doing it now, tournament style, actually might work. So what have they got? We'll talk about it a bit later, but there's like 6 games in 17 days for the Australian teams, which is good. But the highlights packages are great. So you got the full replay on Paramount Plus, but you've also got something in between. And the highlights packages aren't just broken into 3 minutes. If the Melbourne City game was 3-0, it's 12 minutes. The Sydney FC game was 0-0, and it was about 7 or 8 minutes. So they actually did it quite well because they're only showing you what you want to see. One thing I did like, which we might talk about, was Trent Bahia was how they pronounced his name for Sydney FC. So that's one thing.
It's tough for these international commentators.
I'm guilty of it all, probably once a week too. But yes, it's
far be it for me to go through the BG Pathum United starting lineup and nail all of those. But it is always a little bit amusing.
Yeah, it's right. It still makes you laugh, and people will be laughing at us, I'm sure, doing the same thing.
Yeah, I always enjoyed when Adam Taggart was going through that prolific spell in Korea, and it was always Tagate.
Yeah.
Which is, it is actually, I really genuinely enjoyed that. You know, it feels like you're watching a different competition when you hear the foreign commentary, and, you know, you hear them. It's actually a completely different style. It's like multiple callers going nuts at the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like watching a YouTube watch along, or everyone going nuts, and it's not that restrained kind of, you know, English Barry Davies thing where you're like, fine goal. It's just literally three dudes in the same booth going crazy and screaming.
We need Adam Taggart back, don't we? Need him in some form in Japan. We need,
you know what?
Socceroos.
Speaking of Korea, I think we've got our guest joining us in the waiting room. So we're going to go to a break, and on the other side, K-League United's Ryan Walters is going to join us to talk Asian Champions League.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Maloney takes, and it's in! It's Ben Watson! It's Ben Watson for Wigan Athletic! They've surely won the FA Cup! For Dave Whelan, for Roberto Martinez! You just cannot write scripts like this! To a penalty conceding kind of situation, but Atkinson did well. Oh my goodness! Have you seen a more freakish goal in A-League history? Riley McGreen with a scorpion kick into the top corner. It's one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. Come on, Ernie, on your feet.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
This could be the most dramatic story of the season. It's Torres to get a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written.
Unbelievable! You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topor Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamante again! Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick from here.
Welcome back to the Oz Football Hour here on FNR Football Nation Radio. I'm Josh Parrish. I've got Jason Goldsmith here with me, and joining us live from Bangkok, K-League United's Ryan Walters. Ryan, welcome back to FNR.
Thanks for having me. Always fun, always fun.
Asian Champions League time. I think it's our favourite time of the year. We get to expand our horizons, get out of our little bubbles, especially our little Australian football bubble. It's nice to get some fresh air outside of that sometimes. Ryan, you're there covering the competition. Tell us, what's the atmosphere like being so far in Thailand?
It's been pretty good. The game on Friday night, BG's opener, I think there were 6,000 fans in. There is limited capacity right now, but fans are allowed in. So that's been a massive difference. I mean, covering this tournament for a couple of years now in empty stadiums hasn't and the best. Jeonju last year for the quarterfinals and the semifinals, there were some fans allowed in, but we all know what happened with Jeonbuk and Ulsan there. So there was one good game, and then the Jeonbuk fans weren't coming back to watch Ulsan Pohang. So it's been pretty good. Last night there was a mighty 263, I think, at the late game, watching the cities, I should say, Melbourne and United go at each other. But it's been good. Obviously, the rain came down last night. The rain is going to be a factor. The heat was a factor on Friday. So all those things considered, I still think it's been pretty good.
There was great atmosphere, the Pathum United Melbourne City game too, with the 6,000 crowd that you mentioned too, Ryan. So that obviously adding a lot more to it for you. And what other games have you been to?
I'm here following my beloved Jeonnam Dragons while working the tournament. So I'm only going to the games here in Bangkok. I was tempted to go out to Buriram because they've got 2 groups out there. But I just decided to stay here. So I've been going to all the games in Pathum Thani. And they've all been good. Like you say, the atmosphere there, the BG fans are really bringing the noise when they are there. Even last night, I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 there last night, and they were still good and loud for the BG game, which didn't please me as a Jeonnam Dragons fan, but it's been nice having at least one home team, because if we're going to do these hubs, and then it makes sense to do them right now, it is nice having at least one team that's really going to get some folks behind them, as opposed to 2020 when it was in Qatar. Again, understandable reasons, but it just wasn't anywhere near as fun.
Jeonnam is in an interesting situation this year. Fans in Australia probably don't pay too much attention to Korean football. Can you tell us why are Jeonnam Dragons playing in the Asian Champions League right now?
Yeah, well, because we're the best team in Asia.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Other than that, for those that don't know, the mighty Jeonnam Dragons, it's like a Tribe Called Quest. You have to use the full name there. The mighty Jeonnam Dragons are here, a K-League 2 team, a second division team, are here in Bangkok playing in ACL because they won the FA Cup last year. And that's actually something that manager Jung Kyung-jun brought up last night in the post-match press conference when asked, like, do you feel like you belong here? And he said, look, we beat 4 K-League 1 teams to win the FA Cup last year. And one of them at the time were the defending ACL champions, Ulsan Hyundai, when they went out in the semifinals of the FA Cup last year to the mighty Jeonnam Dragons. They were defending ACL champs. So, I mean, this is a team that they were giant killers in the FA Cup. K-League 2 has been a little bit more of a struggle this year, but I think that's been largely because the season started so early, and they've had a split focus. But that first game against United City, they went well. Last night, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Let's get into that. What has been your impression of that group involving Melbourne City, BG Pathum United and United City so far? Melbourne City have started with a win and a draw. I think most Australian fans will be happy with that, considering the poor record of Australian teams in the competition in recent seasons. What have you made of that group?
I love this group. I think, you and I talked about it a little bit when you were on the K-League United podcast and we were previewing these matches. I think this is the closest group. I think this is one of the more interesting groups because it doesn't have a Chinese youth team in it getting whooped 8-0. So, I mean, to me, this is what this competition should be about, where you've got so-called small teams like United City who are really holding their own. I thought they looked really good Friday night. I expected them to set up a little bit more defensively against Jeonnam and compact, but they went out and they attacked the game, and I think that surprised Jeonnam on Friday. I thought they had a really strong first half last night against Melbourne. They weren't able to carry it through, but I think this is a really not evenly matched group. I do think that the favorites have to be Melbourne City and BG, but I do think on the whole in the East, I think this is the most balanced group. And so I've really been enjoying the football so far. And again, I've been pleasantly surprised with how well United City have played, considering the lack of competitive matches they've had in the past year.
Yeah, I noticed the Melbourne City played a lot of the younger players and gave a few of their experienced players a rest in that win. Now, it's a little quirk in the fixture. So they're playing 6 games in 17 days, but the next 2 games for Melbourne City are both against Jeonnam Dragons. Mm-hmm. So what do you expect to see that in terms of tactics and team lists and that kind of thing? Because it's interesting, and I think it happens in some of the other groups as well, that they're doubling up and playing the same opposition. Do you know a reason for that, or is that just the quirk of the fixture?
I think it's just one of those weird things where it's like, well, when you have a 4-team group, you just snake the draw. That's what we did when it was home and away. So we'll do it now when we're playing all these games in 2 weeks. So I think it was just let's just keep the format the same. It works for me personally because I'm hoping to get into the stands as a fan for the United City Junham game at the end of the tournament when, let's face it, that'll be for last place. But I think going into these games, I think it actually suits Junham quite well. I think last night playing against BG, I think they looked a little bit more comfortable conceding possession. I think that's one of the reasons they struggled so much Friday night against United City. Boat passing by in case you can't hear that one. Anyway, I think when they had to attack, they weren't sure what to do with it. And you could see that in the first 30 minutes. They kind of were looking around like, what are we supposed to do with this much of the ball? So I think that worked out a little bit better for them against BG last night. And I expect them to set up the same against Melbourne. They'll probably call it a 3-4-3. It'll play more like a 5-2-3 or a 5-3-2, the way that they're going to set up defensively. There'll almost always be 5 at the back in the first half. I think the strategy in all of these games, and I think it's come out in the first 2 especially, it looks like it's just get to halftime 0-0. And they've done that in 2 of the games. It was job done in 2 of the games. And so I don't expect them to break away from that at all. And it's really going to come down to that depth. And I don't think Junham can match the depth. Because like you say, Melbourne trotted out to not a reserve 11 or a second 11 last night, but there was a lot of rotation and they still look really good. And I worry that Junham can't quite keep up with that depth, especially with our leading scorer last year, Jonathan Balotelli. He's out injured right now. So that's really affecting things.
Is there much talk about Melbourne City's ownership being the City Football Group? Because it has been an ambition of them since they were purchased that they will make the Asian Champions League, and this is their first time. Has there been much talk around them being sort of one of the clubs of the football group?
There actually hasn't been. I think this is one of the things that, obviously been spending time with quite a few folks that are knowledgeable of Asian football or around this tournament. And I think it's one of those things where we've all been kind of expecting Melbourne City to make their debut in this tournament for a while. And now that they're here, it's not so surprising. I mean, they are a well-run club. They've got a really good manager. And I think they've largely been judged based on the merits and what they're doing on the field. I actually haven't heard anody bring up City Football Group yet.
Okay.
Well, when we were doing that preview pod...
I will now. I will now.
Money. It's all about the money. No, just kidding.
When we were doing the preview pod, Ryan, I pinpointed Florian Berengay as their most important player. And, of course, he promptly went and did his hamstring in the derby before they left. I'm not sure about that midfield, I have to say, against teams that are going to sit deep against them. I'm not sure how you felt about their performance against BG Pathum. Andrew Naboot obviously scored a fantastic goal, but I've been arguing for a long time that, his salary means that their front line is a little bit imbalanced, and the fact that they're having to shoehorn Marco Tilio playing in an attacking midfield role rather than his natural position on the wing, leaves them a little bit short-handed if their creative fulcrum does go down. Do you think they are tournament contenders genuinely, or is it just that they're looking good in what's a fairly weak group in the whole?
I mean, look, they should have lost Friday. I forgot who it was for BG, but if he could have hit the entire open net that was there for him, then that's a 2-1 result, and BG's got 6 points right now, which is honestly where they should be. And BG's the one that have impressed me the most. I like the way that they play. They look extremely well organized. And it is one of those things where for Melbourne, it's kind of tough to tell where they are with things. I think, again, I don't think they played poorly on Friday, but I do think BG deserved to win that game. And there's no question it deserved to win last night. That was Melbourne City. So I think these Junham matches will be a good way to gauge where they are with things right now, because it'll be the same opponent in consistent matches. And then, that last match is going to be a really fun one. I do think that that's going to be for first place in the group, which could be huge because, as we know, not all of the second place teams get through. So the schedule really worked out for them in this regard, where they had that really tough first game. And I think a draw was a great result for them in that regard. And then you go out and hopefully you get 4 wins in a row. And then you come back and you face BG again. I do think the Dragons are going to make it tough for them to score, though. I think it's going to be an extremely defensive performance from Junham on Thursday night. So we'll see how they can break that down. I think that'll be really telling.
extremely defensive teams against Melbourne City tend to make you shudder, to be honest. They thrive in open space, and when it's less than available, they can be hard to watch. But speaking of games that were a little hard to watch, John Book 0, Sydney FC 0. I mean, great result for Sydney FC. I have to say, on paper, getting a draw against one of the strongest teams in Korea, the dominant force in Korean football, is actually a very creditable result given their inconsistent middling form in the A-League this season.
Yeah, that was a game.
Yeah, it happened. Yep. It was 90 minutes, the ball's kicked around, and at the end, everyone went home.
Yes, and luckily some of us got to go to bed once the coverage was done. That was not a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination, but like you say, I don't think Sydney cares, and why would they? Because that's a great way to start this group, to get a point against Jeonbuk. I've got to say, a Jeonbuk that was rounding into form in K-League as well. They're not in the lead as we're used to them being all year. Jeonbuk started really slow, but they won 3 in a row in the league. They looked like they were rounding into form. And so to keep a clean sheet against a team that was finding form, it was a really good result from Sydney. And again, much like we were just talking about with Melbourne City, I think that the schedules worked out really well for them as well, where they got that Jeonbuk game out of the way early. They got a point out of it. And now you go into the rest of the group and you see what you can get. So I think Sydney's set up well. And I know that it hasn't been the domestic season that they would want, but boy, what a nice feather in the cap it would be to get out of this group for them.
And the next opponent in a couple of hours, actually, Hongan Julai. You tell us a little bit about them. They took Yokohama 2-1.
Yeah. I mean, we'll say that they got a goal in that one. That one went down as an own goal, but I don't think it was undeserved on the base of play. Win Kong Fung is the Vietnamese number 10, as in wears the kit number 10. He plays in a couple of different positions. He's obviously somebody to watch for them. He actually played in Korea for a little bit with Incheon and then Gangwon, but never really found his footing there. But he was fantastic in Suzuki Cup. I think that he's definitely the one to watch for July in that one. But I think that this is one that Sydney should be expecting to win. I just don't. I don't think, like we were talking about earlier, depth. And I think that Sydney's going to have a little bit more depth. But I don't see this being an easy game for them. I think maybe 1-0, 2-1, something like that.
What kind of support do you think you can expect for July in this match? What kind of home advantage are they going to have?
I think that's going to be really big. I'm not 100% sure on what the capacity rules are there, but watching the game on the live stream Saturday, I don't even really remember which day it is. It's tournament coverage time, so it's a match day.
Whenever the match
Games are on.
Tomorrow's a non-match day. What a day. But I think it's going to be huge. And I really do think that of all of these teams, JDT's got a really great home advantage as well. But I think those two are the ones that are really, really taking advantage of playing in their home stadium. So I think it's going to be loud. It was loud on Saturday, and I think it'll be loud in this one again.
I think all Asian tournaments should be held in Southeast Asia. It's always the best.
I'm for it.
When they had the Asian Cup was it Vietnam and Thailand or Malaysia? I can't remember. A few years ago, it was awesome. I remember. Like it's always a good atmosphere and a good show that Southeast Asia tends to put on for these things. So I think it's going to be an interesting match tonight for Sydney. I wouldn't be surprised if after the great result they got playing on the back foot against Jeonbuk, they actually struggle against this team.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you could see that for sure. And I could definitely see July are going to hit on the counter. And I think that they've definitely got the pace to do that. So it should be more entertaining than the Jeonbuk match anyway.
Elsewhere in the tournament, a couple of surprising eyebrow-raising results. Lion City Sailors 3, Daegu 0. I know there was a red card in that game, but that's huge.
It's a massive result. I'm very torn on this one because I want K-League teams to win every single game in the group stage. But Lion City Sailors, I think they've shown a lot of ambition, and I really, really like what they've done in Singapore, where they were the first Singaporean team to win the league in several years. Nagata, obviously, is a Japanese team that plays in the Singapore League. So I like that they went out, they invested, and they said, we are going to be the team of the Singapore Premier League, and they went out there and they got a massive result. Yes, there was a red card. Daegu are playing without Cecina right now, their talisman, who he can change a game.
Yeah, he just scores from anywhere. So, like, when you lose him, it just kind of changes the whole equation, right?
Yeah, he does what he wants. It's his world, and we're all living in it. He's a phenomenal player, and so there is that. And Daegu hasn't been in good form in the league, but when you're talking about a K-League 1 team going against a team from Singapore, even a team as dominant as Lion City Sailors can be on their day, this is still a massive result. And last night, yeah, K-League went 0 for 3 last night to ASEAN teams. But I think it's great for this tournament, and it's really, really good at a time where, let's just call it what it is, these Chinese youth teams, it's a joke. And they shouldn't be in this tournament, in my opinion. Last year, sure, it's understandable, very extenuating circumstances. But this year, what's the point of running them out there to get trounced 8-0 against Kawasaki Frontale? And that was Frontale being nice, in my opinion. They held it off at 8. That could have been 15 if they were in the mood. But then you go out there and you see JDT beat Ulsan. You see BG beating a team, okay, K2, sure. But BG getting wins in this tournament is still really big. And Lion City Sailors, again, I love how they've built. I love the roster that they have. They've got Kim Do-hoon, which I think was a really great sign of intent for them to go and get an ACL winning manager to take this tournament seriously. And now they've got 3 points. I think it's really great to see. It just sucks that it was against K-League teams.
Well, speaking of that, JDT 2, Ulsan 1 is absolutely massive upset. Obviously, the home advantage playing a big part, but
sure.
Still, I mean, what did you make of that game and that performance?
Yeah, the Battle of the Tigers went the way of the home side there. Ulsan, man, they just love Ulsonic. This is just what they do. They look like world beaters. You think, nobody's gonna touch them, and then they go out and they do something like this. I mean, this is a disastrous start for Ulsan. They should have won that first game, which would have been a massive result against Frontale, to go out there and get 3 points against them in the opening game. But they just lost concentration at the end of the game. Cho Yeon-woo, one of the best keepers in Korea, just got it wrong and basically gave a goal away. And I don't know how much that played into this one. But also, this Ulsan team, they should be able to score more than one goal in this game. So credit to JDT here and how well they're playing. And I think that, I was talking about Daegu and how they're not doing well in the league and Jeonnam, this, that, and the other. But look, these teams all come from very strong leagues. Ulsan, they haven't lost this year. JDT is the first team to beat them this year. So that's massive. And I think all the credit needs to go to JDT, how they played that game and the players out on the pitch. And now hopefully after last night, we can see Korean teams specifically and a lot of Asian football fans in general taking these teams seriously, because I think it was a massive night, and hopefully they can follow it up with a few more wins.
Yeah, a bit of a wake-up call, I guess, for the traditional powers to see these Southeast Asian teams doing so well and actually, upstaging them in these big matches. You mentioned, the Chinese youth sides making a bit of a mockery of the tournament. Do you see, that they've obviously been trounced by Japanese teams left, right and centre. Kawasaki, you mentioned, taking it easy at 8-0. Are they the tournament favourites for you, or is it too early to say?
I mean, going into the tournament from the East, certainly you would have to say Frontale.
Let's limit it to the East side. We'll count out the West for now, because it's impossible to be across all of that.
You don't want to cover 40 teams right now? Let's do this. I'm here for it. I think Frontale were one of the favorites in the East coming into it. And I think that they have to remain that way, especially the group that they're in. You've got to favor them in that group. I don't think they're going to struggle that much in that group, which could come back to haunt them in the knockout rounds. But there's so much time between the group stage and the knockout rounds that I don't think that they're really going to struggle. Kanathip was one of the many scorers last night, so I think that's really nice for him because he's struggled domestically. They're playing him out of position from where he used to play with Sapporo, so I think it was good for him to get a goal, get that confidence going. And I don't see them losing a game in this group, and then I don't know who's going to challenge them in the knockout rounds either, to be honest. I think they've got to be considered one of the favorites in the East, and I would have thrown Ulsan in that group, but they've really got to turn things around. 1 point through 2 matches is pretty disappointing. And as I said earlier, second place isn't necessarily going to be good enough. But that's where again, these CSL teams, now Group J's got 3 teams, so results against fourth place teams don't count. So, what are we doing? And it's a situation where, look at the way that Buriram played in their playoff match against Daegu. Convinced me that Buriram couldn't have done a better job against Kawasaki last night. Convinced me that Port, who lost 3-0 to Ulsan, couldn't have done a better job last night. Melbourne Victory should be in this tournament. That was a great game that they played against Vissel Kobe, and they would up this tournament to where it should be instantly if they replace one of these CSL sides. So it's something that I hope AFC looks at. Again, there's a really weird time we're living in, so it's understandable in a lot of ways, but I don't think we can have this for a third year next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Like, there are so many teams who would have loved to be in this competition and sent their strongest side and really, really tried to make their mark. And they've obviously, had those great playoff matches, and now we don't get to see them again. And it's such a shame when you've got, these shells of clubs that are basically just fulfilling a fixture and nothing more. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's great for some of these young players to play against quality opposition, but it must be demoralising to be on the end of all these scorelines. So. Anyway, let's look ahead to tonight's games. Vissel Kobe versus Kitchee, which Kitchee had a good win in their first round, which is, big for a team from Hong Kong to be making an impact on the tournament, but they've always been an ambitious side. We mentioned Sydney FC playing July at the same time, 9 p.m, and then Yokohama F. Marinos versus John Book is the Titanic battle. People are willing to stay up till midnight here on the Australian East Coast for that. Ryan, can we get a prediction for Sydney FC July? And I'm going to make you stick your neck out and say who's going to win the Yokohama John Book match as well.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about Kitchee for a bit.
Yeah, if you want to talk about Kitchee, please be my guest.
The only thing I was going to say about Kitchee, and I will keep it brief, is that Kobe has been terrible domestically. They've been terrible. I think they're the only J1 team without a win so far. And Kitchee are taking this seriously. I don't see any reason that Kitchee shouldn't be trying to win this group. I think they've got the talent. I think they take it seriously, and it's another one that I think would be really good for this tournament to get a non-Korean, non-Japanese team into the knockout rounds would be really great.
And also Dejan Damjanovic plays for them, and you just want to see that guy. Like, his box office. He's like Asia's Ibrahimovic.
And he's just extending his goal scoring streak at this point, the goal scoring record, I should say. I think he's at 40 right now, 40 in ACL, which is the most. So hopefully he can keep that going. I do think, genuinely, I think that'll be a decent game. But that's another one, like we were talking about the groups. If Buriram United is in that group, that's another one that could have home fans in there, and it'd be really great. But to your question, I think Sydney is going to get the win tonight. I think it'll be narrow. I think it'll be a 1-goal win. And I heard you guys talking before I came on. I'm hoping someone's talking to the commentator, because Bahadur is on the ball a lot. But this Bahagie, this dude, I'm not a fan of him. Just one phone call to somebody in Australia. Anyway, I do think Sydney gets the win in that one. And then I think it's going to continue to be a rough week, midweek for K-League teams. I don't see Jumbuk getting a win. I think Yokohama is going to win that one. I don't want to say it'll be comfortable, but I think Yokohama's they're just so good right now. I think they're going to win that one against Jumbuk.
Very quickly on Bahadur, when we tried to turn Usain Bolt into a footballer here in the A-League, they had that Trent Bahadur was actually faster than him after the first 10 metres. So that's one claim to fame that he had. Bahadur.
There it is.
And our Melbourne Victory connection is the coach of Yokohama F. Marinos. So he's the Aussie boy, Kevin Muscat. So I think the next couple of games for Sydney FC is against Yokohama. How do you think they will go into the tournament? I know a lot of Victory fans will be actually cheering for them ahead of the Australian team, because they're one of their fiercest rivals in Sydney FC.
Yeah, I mean, what Yokohama's doing is, look, I love the Aussie coaching connection they've got there. We've all seen what Ange has done moving on from there, and I love that they brought in an Aussie coach afterwards. I'd love to see K-League start to do this, and I think that's one of the things that makes this tournament so fun, is that you can have Australian fans tuning into this. You don't have to like Sydney. You certainly don't have to like Yokohama, but there is an interest in this game. Much like we were talking about Frontale, I don't really see Yokohama struggling that much in this group. I think they'll get 4 points at least out of the matches against Sydney, I think. If not, then well done, Sydney. But I think it's one where they're a little bit younger, and I think they'll be able to handle that many matches in that many days, especially when they're facing each other after a couple of match days right in the middle of this when legs are going to be starting to get kind of tired. So I do think that Yokohama's going to have the edge. I think Yokohama's got the edge on everybody in this group, though.
Well, I'll run this one past you before we let you go, Ryan. Kevin Muscat has made a career, in terms of his coaching at least, of building on what Ange Postecoglou has teed up for him. He took over at Melbourne Victory. They won the treble. They won everything. They were Melbourne Victory's greatest ever side in 2015. Just after, he's coming in, he's building on what Ange has done, and he's gone slightly more direct, slightly more, what's the word? He's gone a little bit more textbook with his setup. He's not as experimental as Ange. He's gone a little bit more cookie cutter, but they've got the basis of playing out from the back and everything. So, he just makes it a little bit more simple. And, coming into Yokohama, of course, Ange won the J-League, as we all know, but couldn't get it done in Asia. Kevin Muscat taking over, Yokohama Asian champions, I'm calling it now.
Oh, all right.
That's my tip. That's my big tip.
Yokohama's my Japanese team. They were the first J-League side I saw in person, so I'm all for it. I'll even bust out my kit.
Nice one.
Fantastic. Ryan Walters, thank you so much for joining us. Give your stuff a quick plug. Where can people hear and read your stuff?
Sure. All over the place. K-League.com, the official K-League Twitter at K-League, and also K-League United. We're at K-League United on all social medias and occasionally on FNR as well, so folks can hear us there.
Ryan, thank you so much, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Ryan Walters joining us live from Bangkok, and just about bringing today's show to an end. What do you make of this Asian Champions League tournament? We've got so many weird subplots and storylines going on with, Chinese teams not taking it seriously and sending the kids. It's a bit like Perth Glory at the moment.
It is. Look, we need to embrace it. We keep saying we need to embrace it. The times, the highlights are there on Paramount. The two of the bigger Aussie clubs are in there at the moment. They've got a good chance of, Melbourne City got a good chance of moving out of the group. Sydney FC, if they get the job done tonight, will get some more points. So they'll also be a good chance.
I honestly think Vissel Kobe versus Kitchee is going to be a better game than Sydney FC versus July, although the atmosphere is going to be better in the July game because they're playing this tournament in a hub in Malaysia, Vietnam and Thailand. Yep. So you have home crowds for a few of these teams. Again, I think the Vietnamese side will set up quite defensively and Sydney will struggle to break them down. And although they got, that creditable draw against John Book, I'm actually predicting a draw tonight as well. They're going to win 0-0 against John Book and lose 0-0 against July, if you will.
Well, let's just hope they get it right with the bench. They're the right age of the players, the right number of foreigners, all the rest of the rules.
I don't think the AFC is going to be as charitable as the A-League was.
No, they'll tick the right boxes.
They're going to throw the book at them if they get it wrong.
Well, let's hope they get the points. So we want the Aussie teams to do well. So let's cheer for Sydney FC.
Next up for Melbourne City is John Dragons, the K2 side, playing in the Champions League after their giant killing run in the Korean Cup, which is a bit like the time Wigan won the FA Cup and got relegated and then had to play in the Europa League the next season and almost went bankrupt. So shout out to Wigan fan Nick Dabano if he's listening. But been good fun today, Jason. Any further thoughts from you before we go? We didn't talk about the Matildas, of course.
No, not. But they did what we said they needed to do last week. We said they want to get goals early and then just rotate the bench in a friendly, which they did. They made 5 subs in one hit. So that worked out well for what we want for the national team there. Plenty of football coming up again. There's games nearly every day as we still limp towards the end of the season.
Yeah, limping is right, but hey, we're doing well down here in Melbourne. You got to say the Victorian teams have held up their end of the bargain when you look at the A-League table.
Well, I was calling a Victory City grand final last week, and maybe it's a City United one at the moment, with Victory stumbling a little bit with a draw against Brisbane Roar last week.
So Victory's funny though because they play better against better teams.
They do,
because they're a reactive side. So
they pinched it last minute with D'Agostino against Newcastle as well. So
Majota.
Dagger scored early first, and then Majota was
That's
there.
the striker job share that they've got going on at Victory. It's hard to keep track of. And it was a header as well. Where does Majota ever scored a header? But apparently he's got that in his
A win
locker.
is a win. I'll take it.
And Economides playing a full full 90 for the first time this year, maybe. It's been a long time since we've seen him play 90 minutes. So Victory, I think Victory are chugging along nicely. I'm not too worried about them, to be honest. I think once they get into finals football, you're actually going to see the best of Victory as long as they've got everybody fit and available.
Well, a full house at Amy Park, if those top three teams turn out to be the two grand finalists, would be a nice way to finish the season, especially for us down here.
All right, that's all from us. If you missed any of our interview with K-League United's Ryan Walters, you can go check it out on the podcast platforms very shortly. We'll be back with The Green Room tomorrow night, and I think we've got the EPL show coming back as well. No radio dub this week. We're aiming to bring it back next time. Bakura will be back with a big interview guest, hopefully. We'll be talking to Jeff Hopkins about not only Victory's title-winning season, but also women's football as a whole. So hoping to get Jeff on in the coming weeks. But stay tuned for that. And from us, it's goodbye for now.
Victory looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind top or Stanley? It doesn't matter!